name is Shakaya Jeter. I'm a senior here at Warren Harder High School. The lack of technology in our school has affected many of the students here.
Many public schools are underfunded and have a severe lack of technology. There's much discussion about the achievement gap and the digital divide. I've worked in an underperforming urban high school that nearly personifies this digital divide. Our technology is limited, and what we do have is not well utilized. I teach 11th grade history of the Americas, and so I can't solve the budgetary problems of our municipality, nor can I change the perception that public education spending is unnecessary. I began to wonder what I could affect and what I could change. After evaluating the professional environment I am in, I chose to focus my research on students' usage of personal technology in the classroom and the learning outcomes it can create. While many schools spend large amounts of money in technology, the usage and effectiveness of those resources are unclear. Because so many municipalities face budgetary constraints, I wanted to focus on students utilizing the technology they already possess, like smartphones and Wi-Fi-enabled iPods. The essential problem, aside from budgetary concerns and the lack of technology, is that students seem generally disengaged in the history of the Americas, and I wanted them to explore history and current events with a more critical eye. So with the implementation of a blended classroom, using an asynchronous online discussion forum actually increased student engagement and ultimately student achievement. Lee sparked my interest in her study that compared the quality of technology exposure to the quantity of exposure. Her study concluded that quality exposure had more significant impact on student achievement than did quantity. This was reassuring considering my district.
Woo! I feel like I'm in a booth, real talk.
The current research largely suggests that technology usage, if nothing else, increases students' perception of learning. That seemed like a good place to continue. If students feel as if they're achieving, perhaps they actually would. As I continued sifting through what seemed like hundreds of journal articles, I came to see a more complete picture. Perception of learning can be as essential, as it tends to encourage greater engagement. The educational theorist Marzano is well known for his theory that motivation of students should be increased in order for them to be more successful in learning. Luke's study was the one that galvanized my research. She found that students were not only comfortable with online interactions, they felt as though they learned more as a result. Many other researchers confirmed her report through various trials and experiments. Because so many students already utilize social networking sites, I sought to explore online discussions to increase student engagement and ultimately achievement. Sue and Beaumont analyzed wiki pages and suggested that students who had the opportunity to discuss class topics informally on an online platform were ultimately more engaged in class. And after reviewing several other articles of a similar nature, I found myself coming back to Luke. Luke's research suggested that students who participated in a blended learning environment that included both face-to-face and online discussions provided the students with two mediums to share their thoughts and thus ultimately increase their engagements. A glaring similarity between all the research was that students' conception of learning was affected positively by the use of technology. This suggested that even if direct achievement was only mildly impacted, students' attitudes towards learning improved because of technology integration. This essential piece of information may be the most important for looking at a set of unmotivated and underachieving students. Students who were more engaged in the learning process have a higher likelihood of achievement, and so I developed and implemented an online discussion forum for my students. We have one computer lab with 25 working terminals for 350 students in my academy, so I had to begin my implementation with a survey to figure out how many students had access to technology and could actually access the internet at least once a week. After compiling the results, it was impossible to ignore the fact that 64% of my students did not have computers. It was also impossible to ignore that they did have smartphones or iPods. This was my opening. I had to select a discussion platform that was accessible from the web and show the students how to set it up and how to participate. After the initial setup, we reviewed a familiar discussion rubric, one we've used in face-to-face discussions in class. Students were to receive rubric feedback after each post. We also had a brief lesson on netiquette. It was important for students to realize the difference between texting and online discussions. After 2 weeks of online discussions, some problems were evident. The original platform, Twidgeducate.com, proved to be an awkward and challenging platform. Students were unable to access it efficiently from handheld Wi-Fi enabled devices, and as a result, the participation was only 55% for those posts. In agreement with the survey, only 36% of students had regular access to a computer, but obviously some sought to use the school computers during non-class hours. After 2 posts on Twidgeducate.com, I began the implementation period over again and changed that platform to WordPress.com. This proved to be a much more user-friendly interface, and participation increased dramatically as there was a very easy app to use, and most students could access it regularly. Each topic was posted on Sunday evenings, and in many cases, they were posted within 24 hours. It seems students were beginning to look forward to these discussions. Most of the topics had to do with current events in Latin American history that are frequently overlooked in domestic news. The initial survey also revealed some generalizations about students' perception of learning in the course. On average, in the pre-survey, the 30 students believed they were earning a C for the course, on a scale of 1 to 5, and they found the level of engagement to be a 3. Students also felt as though they were learning an average amount, with a mean score of 3 on a scale of 1 to 5. At the conclusion of Cycle 2, though, after participating in the online discussion forum, there were some changes in student perceptions. 17 students still believed they were earning a C, but 10 students scored themselves in an A to B range. The mean levels of engagement increased from an average of 4 to 5. Students' perception of learning was consistent with a score of 4. The students proved to be generally self-aware, as there were 3 A's and 6 B's at the end of the cycle. 3 students were transferred out of the class during the cycle. Additionally, formative data was collected using the discussion rubric students were already familiar with. This allowed me to provide feedback on the quality of students' posts. This formative assessment informed the overall qualitative data. Throughout the course of Cycle 2, students' average score on the discussion rubric increased from a holistic score of 3 to 4. The first discussion post resulted in an average class score of 4, but as the process continued, the 27 participants wavered from an average scores of 3 to 4. Clearly, some of the topics were more enticing to students, as there were consistent high scores for certain posts while others were slightly lower. The variance in scores can most likely be attributed to the discussion topics themselves, rather than students' abilities. By the end of the cycle, there were many top scores of 4, and the average for the entire cycle was a 4. This kind of revealed that student communication skills were improving. The other assessment tool that was used at the end of the cycle was the percentage of participation and the change in students' actual grades. The overall participation rate remained at 89%, which reflected the 24 participants out of the adjusted target audience of 27. Of the 89% of participants, the mean increase in actual course grades was 7%. The data revealed all that I had hoped. Students' perception of learning, engagement, and actual grades increased.
And I think as a result, we learned how to facilitate discussion without being as shy and apprehensive about the topics.
Well, I think it would be reckless to abandon this project. The data revealed success in all 3 categories I was interested in: perception of learning, engagement in class, and actual increased achievement. There are a couple of next steps in particular I would like to implement. The first is to convince other history teachers in my academy to implement this similar model. Of course, I would like it to be a requirement for every class, but starting with the discipline of history would be a good place until other colleagues catch on. The second step is to incorporate this discussion forum in a more comprehensive site. Although WordPress.com served the students well, I think a more comprehensive learning management system might be even more beneficial. If students had one site where they could access all course materials, including discussion forums, engagement and achievement might increase even further. I experimented already using Schoology.com, and it seems to combine the benefits of online discussion, comprehensive learning management system, and accessibility from handheld devices quite well.